It's not about politics, it's about football.
This is a simple game.
We're going to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. We're just going to play football, really.
How good of a football player are you?
I just get in and try to spin it. That's all.
I just love the game.
It really is the best time of the year.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into It's Just Football, live from Mobile, Alabama at the 2023 Senior Bowl. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Mike Renner. Mike, we're here, baby. How's it feel?
Live and alive. I'm back.
That's true.
I feel good.
Yeah, I forgot. This is your return to the show after a week of hiatus.
Wasn't fired. Was dealing with some medical issues, but I feel better now. And like I said, am alive. So
there were a lot of really great conspiracy theories of where you were for the last week that we were in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the chat in front of me because I don't have Wi-Fi for this show, but like I would love for you guys to just remind Mike of what your favorite conspiracy theories were and where he was for the last week. But man, do we have a fantastic show here for the people today. Obviously, day one of the Senior Bowl is in the book, so we're going to have all sorts of practice recaps for you. We're going to give you our top 3 players from both the American and the national group. We're going to give you our 5 favorite NFL draft fits from guys that we just saw at the Senior Bowl. Doesn't have to be in round 1, could really be anywhere in the draft, but we're going to give you 5 NFL draft fits that we absolutely loved after today. And of course, because it's just football, we're going to give you guys a dog of the day as well. We'll give you a dog of the day from every single day of Senior Bowl practice. But Mike, before we get into the Senior Bowl, we got some major news around the NFL while practice was happening.
Oh, wow,
2 major head coach moves. The first one, Demeco Ryans going to the Houston Texans. How do you feel about this move? What's your thoughts?
Love this move. Texans, first off, confirmed not racist after making this hire.
Jeez.
Second off, a former
Right
Texan, a former Senior Bowl participant back in 2006, makes sense for a lot of reasons, right? This was always kind of, in my opinion, the plan. When you have a multiple time accused sexual assaulter holding you hostage at quarterback, you're not going to get a good head coaching candidate. You flat out aren't. So those last 2 years, they were stuck. No one wanted that job, but now they have number 2 overall pick. They're going to get a franchise quarterback. They have a lot of cap space. They have an opportunity to build this team in the mold of their head coach. And which head coach would you want to rather do that right now with what he has done, Demeco Ryans, with that 49ers defense? Love the hire. Could not have done better if you were the Houston Texans.
You know, some people might say, hey, you're about to draft your franchise quarterback, right? Maybe get more of an offensive-minded head coach in there. But you and I have talked so many times before on this show and off the show even, that head coaches, it's a different position. Yeah, sure, an offensive-minded head coach could have these little things that could certainly groom young quarterbacks, and that could definitely help. But head coach is like a CEO position, man. It's almost just like the leader of that team. And it truly feels like this is I'm not saying it's only a momentum hire, but it's such a fantastic momentum hire for the Texans because everybody who has anything to do with this Houston franchise is pumped about this move. And I think that matters for a team that, kind of like you said, has not been in the limelight the right way over the last couple of seasons. It feels like it's just a new day in Houston to go along with him being a great defensive mind.
Yeah, I don't want to say offensive-minded or good offensive minds are a dime a dozen, but I don't think it takes a ton to put sort of the pieces around young quarterbacks nowadays. You want a guy who can come in and show, whether it's a Bryce Young, whether it's a Will Levis, how to be a pro. Basically show him the ropes. And there's not really a better guy in my mind to do that than a Demeco Ryans. Someone to command that and basically turn a boy into a man at the quarterback position is what you want, in my opinion. So, yeah, Texas knocked out the park with this.
And if they get the chance, obviously, to draft Bryce Young, whether it's them sitting at number 2 overall, whether it's making them the jump up to number 1 overall, whatever. If they can get themselves Bryce Young and Demeco Ryans in this offseason, massive win for the Houston Texans. So we figured that we would be unanimous in loving that one. Very curious to hear your thoughts about this second one. Sean Payton's going to be back in the NFL after taking some time off. He's going to go to the Denver Broncos. It was reported that the Denver Broncos are going to trade for Sean Payton because, remember, of course, he retired, so his rights were still owned by the New Orleans Saints. He comes out of retirement. It's reported that the Broncos are going to trade this year's first-round pick and then an early pick from next year. I think I saw a second-round pick, but some places weren't as detailed with that, but they just say some sort of early pick. So, holy cow, now you go all the picks that they traded for Russell Wilson, the picks that they have now traded for Sean Payton. If there has ever been a franchise that is all in on a winning window, it is what the Denver Broncos are currently doing. Mike, what do you think about the move?
I think they went 5-12 last year, is what I think about the move. I don't think they're that close. They went 5-12 last year, and it screams to me an ownership or a new ownership group that just got embarrassed in their first swing of the bat, the head coaching position, and basically saying, we don't want that to happen again. And we're going to move heaven and earth to do so, because from a championship window perspective of like how close are you and when is your opportunity to win a Super Bowl, this is setting you back. Now, I do believe that if you're, in a vacuum, Sean Payton is worth a first and a second pick, in my opinion. To like get a head coach of that caliber is very well worth that much money, or that much draft capital to a team. On the other side, though, they're so far away that it's not moving the needle for you. You're setting yourself back from a team building perspective. This is the roster. This is it. He has to make magic with this. You're banking on the fact that Sean Payton is worth 7 wins in his own right for this roster. I just don't see it.
I don't know. I guess I don't think the Broncos are as far away as you do. Like, yes, this year was a total train wreck, and it was. I'm not taking anything away from that. They definitely struggled, but the defense is good, especially a conversation that you and I were talking about right before we went live. Do they get to keep Aziro Evero, their defensive coordinator? Because I know he had some head coach looks throughout the head coaching cycle, but if he comes back as defensive coordinator, that defense is fantastic. The passing weapons are good. The running back room is going to get good getting Javonte Williams back, right? The offensive line, sure, they could use some upgrades, and maybe they'll be able to switch some guys around in that area. But I think that they had to do this. This is the move that I really do believe the Denver Broncos had to make. You are already so pot committed to this current winning window that it almost doesn't matter. If this doesn't work, whether they got Sean Payton or not, if what they currently did does not work, everybody gets fired anyways. It doesn't. The rest of it doesn't matter. So why not just go as all in as possible with the roster that they have, which I seem to like more than a lot of other people. But I thought it was the move that not only is a good one for Denver, it's the one that they had to make.
No, I will say, I would have made the move myself. If I, like with the way
you predict
things were
this?
dealt, I think I did predict this.
Did you predict this?
I did. I would have made this move myself if I am the Denver Broncos, because as you said, it really, like the first and the second pick, it really doesn't matter either way, because if Russell Wilson sucks, you suck anyway.
Right.
You have to make basically, fruit salad out of fruit, or what's the saying? I'm blanking on the saying, but you have to basically turn Russell Wilson into the former Russell Wilson, the guy you paid money for, or else it doesn't matter anyway. So this is your best opportunity of doing that. But more realistically, like at some point you just have to say Russell Wilson trade was bad and cut bait. So more realistically, I would have liked to have made a move like this like 2 or 3 years down the line and made my roster better in the meantime. But you kind of made your bed when you traded for Russell Wilson. So at that point, the picks are the picks. I think you had to make this move. I don't love it. I don't think the Broncos are any closer to winning a Super Bowl, but I just think it's something that I guess you had to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're at the point where, sure, I think in a vacuum, maybe your timeline would be more appropriate for the Broncos, but you got to act now. I think that the situation was what it was. I don't hate it. And often trading draft picks for really good coaches, I feel like works out. I feel like it's something that
you've been there. You've seen that work out.
It did happen. It did happen in Tampa. Things did end well. There was some hardware in the trophy case now because of it.
But didn't Herm Edwards get traded for a pick too?
I don't know. We don't need to talk about the losses. Look, I only acknowledge when I'm right on takes. I don't have to acknowledge when I'm wrong. It's our show. We could do whatever we want here.
Oh, Herm was a 4th rounder.
It doesn't even count. Doesn't count. See, told you guys I was right. All right, let's dig into the Senior Bowl. Right, the reason why that we're here filming this live on location in Mobile, Alabama, is because of what we saw today, what we're going to see all week. American national practices. Let's start with the American group. And what we'll do is we will each bring 3 guys to the table. Now, we might be able to copy a little bit because sometimes guys just stand out and we want to really recognize them. But, Mike, you got 3, I got 3, and then we'll flip over to the other roster. We'll do 3 and 3 again before we get to our dog of the week or our dog of the day at the end of the show. Who's the first guy that you want to shout out from the American side?
Well, first, I would like to shout out that I am a fan of the fact that there's no real good quarterbacks here. Last year, we had everyone there. We had the whole draft class of quarterbacks here, basically, competing. And it kind of took away from other guys. This year, we can just throw that position out the window. None of these guys are going before the 4th round. I'll just say it right now.
Hey, Duggan looked good.
Okay, you look fine. None of these guys going before the 4th round. So we can focus on other positions. And the one position that I am focusing on, because there's a group of about 3 guys here that I'm intrigued by. Wide receiver, Tank Dell, Houston wide receiver.
Oh, totally.
This is a setting where, the one-on-ones he's supposed to excel. But my God, he was untouchable at the line of scrimmage. His routes were crisp as can be. He has a level of dynamism that I think every team in the NFL is chasing. I thought of him as probably a mid to late day tour, kind of just based off of tape early on. I'm I'm getting sold on this guy as probably a second rounder at this point, middle of the second round.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, in this class, I could certainly see it. He's my number one guy as well. I have to go with Tank Dell, too. Now, what did he officially came in at, what was it, 5'8", 163? I mean, he is small. And so when you talk about this class, even for the people that like Tank Dell a ton, you can't be talking about a first rounder. He is just too small for that. Even if you don't love this wide receiver class. And I think that Tank Dell brings something to this wide receiver class that a lot of other receivers just don't, right? I mean, you mentioned it. The way this guy is able to get out of his break, the way that he is able to flip his hips, the way that he is able to stop on a dime is so impressive. It's head and shoulders above everybody that's here in Mobile, I think. Although there are some good guys here that we will get to later in the show. But I think it also is that athleticism is going to stand out in the draft class overall, because we've talked about it here. It is a draft class that is starving for athletes, really stand-out athletes at the wide receiver position. And Tank Dell absolutely stood out. I mean, they had him field the punts, obviously. They just want to get his dynamic ability on the field as much as possible. I didn't think that he caught as many passes as maybe you would think that he would in a day one, but it's just like he was clearly open, man. He was creating separation everywhere. He was definitely my number one guy as well.
The single most underrated, under-talked about skill for a wide receiver. Everyone loves speed, and Dell has speed, don't get me wrong. But the ability to stop is as important as the ability to start. Yeah, to run efficient routes at the NFL level, you have to be able to stop on dimes. It just flat out is a necessary skill at the wide receiver position. Tank Dell, high-end speed, and stops on a dime. That's a guy I want in my offense. I don't care what offense you're running. He fits.
That's a really great point. Being able to be precise in your route, like that goes into it. That stop. Everybody likes to talk about the startability, the stoppability. You're right. It is just as important when you're trying to create that separation. Who's your number two guy from the American squad?
My number two guy, I'm going to flip to the other side of the coins. Cornerback Tyreek Stevenson from Miami.
Okay.
High on him coming in. He would have been a top 10 corner if Eli Ricks didn't declare on the PFF board, but after this, I think he's going to be a top 10 corner. I saw him as a midday two guy on tape. His press coverage ability, though, comes in at 6 foot, 205 pounds, bigger corner, and at the line of scrimmage, he just shut guys down immediately. And then even when he was a little off coverage, didn't have that physicality at the line, you saw an anticipation ability that a lot of other guys didn't show down here. So Tyreek Stevenson, I thought, had himself a great day.
I only caught a couple of reps, Stevenson, but he did look really good. And I noticed a lot just from having conversations with other people after the day. It's like who stood out. Stevenson continued to be a name that came up, so I like that as well. Somebody else I'll shout out, Julius Brents, the corner from Kansas State. I mean, he is 6'3", 200 pounds, and he was good today. He was such a stand. Now, I thought that we were going to watch him, and I was like, man, he's tall, he's a little high-waisted. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to turn and run with these other guys. I was wondering if he was going to be a little bit grabby, because we've seen that at the Senior Bowl plenty of times too, right? These bigger corners who live off of their length. Sometimes they just really want to stand out at these events. They don't want to get beat with speed, and you just see him grabbing everywhere. So many penalties. He wasn't. He was super patient in press coverage. He waited to really utilize that length until it was appropriate for him and gave him the most advantage. So I didn't have him on my list. He's not my number two guy, but I wanted to shout him out because I think that he absolutely deserves it. The second guy that I want to point out, and this isn't necessarily praise, but I'm pointing this out for a couple of different reasons. Florida offensive guard O'Cyrus Torrence, I think, is projected as a potential first-round pick in this draft. A lot of people think that he could be the first interior offensive lineman on the board. I think that there is still a shot at that, 100%. But I was a little underwhelmed by how he performed early here. I felt like he was not displaying his power nearly as much as I had seen him do on tape. Now, the Senior Bowl is a wonderful exercise to see guys out of their program's element. You plop them into an offense that they're unfamiliar with guys that they're not as have as much chemistry with on the left and the right side of them. So sometimes these kinds of things can happen. I will say, though, Torrence looks great. I thought, I saw pictures of him and videos of him kind of like early throughout the season where I just felt like he was carrying unnecessary weight. Like he didn't look as good as he could have. Here at the Senior Bowl, I think he's cut some weight and he looks a lot more in control of his body. I just think he looks a lot more powerful. The weight's distributed much more in the way that you would want to see it. He's still big in the lower body. He's got the big arms in the upper body. So I just want to say, it was a little bit of an underwhelming day for him to start, but he looks great. I hope he comes out tomorrow and absolutely dominates, because I think he can be able to do that with playing at the weight that he's at.
6'5", 337, 11 1/4 inch hands, 84 inch wingspan, 7 foot wingspan. That dude is a unit. And just, you said he's maybe not the most, like, he doesn't have the mentality of a crushing, bruising guard, but just, like, the physicality that he does possess is NFL caliber, high-end NFL caliber.
Well, he did sometimes at Florida.
Yeah.
He did throughout his tape at Florida. We saw him as an eraser. He had one of the best run-blocking grades that we had over at PFF, but I just didn't see it today.
Yeah.
I want to see it tomorrow. Let's see it tomorrow, Osiris. That's what I want. All right.
I will say, I think he can go as high as, like, 11 to the Titans.
Whoa.
He's got, like, in this class, I do think people want some sure things, and I think he could be that.
Okay. Who's your last guy from the
My
American?
last standout from the American squad was Andre Yosevich. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. The Princeton wide receiver.
Okay.
I said not a great wide receiver class down here, but he has unique size-speed combination. 6'2", 212. Reportedly going to run the 4.3. He's looked fast here out on tape. I love the ball skills. He made an over-the-shoulder grab. It wasn't in the one-on-ones. It was just an open route time. Over-the-shoulder grab, though, that was high-level ball tracking, made it look easy. I think those ball skills are going to be huge for a guy that size. You always love that from a speedier wide receiver. And then just looking like he belonged compared to the tape that he put on at Princeton, where corners he's going up against, they're not NFL caliber. He could just run a straight line and get past those guys. Had to do a little bit more here. I liked what I saw from him early on.
I think that when you come to Mobile, any of these all-star games, being able to stand out right away means a ton because it just shows how natural your abilities are and how confident in yourself you are. So I love that shout out there. Last guy that I had from this group, I'll stay along the offensive line. Tennessee offensive tackle Darnell Wright, their right tackle. I'm such a fan of his. I feel like he is getting slept on a little bit in this class. Yeah. And there were so many times I felt like throughout the one-on-one period and throughout the scrimmages as well where he was just dominating guys. The thing that I like the most about him is his mentality. There was a certain rep. I can't remember which edge rusher he was going up against, but they were coming at him, and normally when you have these one-on-one pass rush drills, the offensive linemen, they're kind of getting to their sets, they're getting to their spot, they're getting their hands up, and they're bracing for whatever the defender might do to them. Darnell Wright, he was taking the fight to them, right? The guy was coming right at him, and he extended the arm immediately, knocked them off, was able to get into his chest, and boom, dominated the rep from that point on. That's the kind of mentality that Darnell Wright plays with. He is an absolute bruiser, and he loves to bring the fight to people. Sometimes gets him a little trouble because he gets a little bit over-aggressive, but it's okay. I'd rather have that as a coach and really be able to shape that mentality into a really good right tackle. He definitely stood out to me today. Loved what I saw from him.
Yeah, he has one of the more powerful upper bodies of any tackle in this draft class. I think you could see teams look at him as a guard too, but I'd keep him at tackle at the next level, at least to start.
I'd totally do that. Yeah. Let's flip over to the national side. Who's the first guy from the national group that you like today?
First guy that just stood out was the first guy I saw on the football field was Sidney Brown, the Illinois safety. Just jacked to the gills. 5'10", 213 pounds.
He's jacked.
With not an ounce of fat on him.
No.
I mean, it's no surprise that he's also one of the most athletic players in this draft class when you have, like 0% body fat. But he's such an easy mover in the one-on-ones and the team drills. Speed is never an issue for him. Guys are just not worried about getting beat deep because of that. So more of a box safety at Illinois this past year, had his best year on tape. Curious to see where he ends up at the next level because I think he could play box safety. I think he can play slot. I think he can play outside corner if you want him to in a pinch. He's that level of athlete. Really like what I saw from him on tape.
All right. Love it, man. Love it, man. His brother Chase Brown's obviously here as well.
Yes.
So, got the brother connection here. The first guy that I want to shout out from the national team, I'll stay along the trenches. I'll go with DeJuan Jones, the right tackle from Ohio State. Now, literally stands out. 6'8", 360. I mean, some places got him listed at 375. I think they tweeted out this morning that he came in at 375, it's just huge. And he was going up against all different types of edge rushers. Specifically, I think the matchup that everybody wanted to see in that practice was Isaiah Foskey, who had beaten most of the offensive tackles that he had gone up against to that point. Isaiah Foskey went up one-on-one with DeJuan Jones, who had won all of his reps as well. And DeJuan got the better of him, man. Foskey tried to get into his chest, and Foskey, the rep before the DeJuan Jones rep, Foskey put Blake Freeland on his ass. Yeah. He went straight into him, full speed to power, right into his chest, and he bulldozed Blake Freeland completely to the ground. It was one of the most impressive reps that we saw today. He faced DeJuan Jones and kind of tried to do, I don't want to say the exact same thing, but he tried to get in his chest, and he went, oh, boy. this dude's a lot bigger. And you just saw that. And so I think Dawand really stood out with that size, with that length. No one was really able to get the better of him. Footwork, I feel like, was a little sloppy at times from him, but he's just so big and powerful. That's the kind of guy that you take a chance on with that athletic ability, or not athletic ability, I should say physical gifts, and you kind of work on the footwork during his first couple of years in the NFL, but was very impressed with him.
Yeah, he was my second standout here. Not high. That's not my type of tackle. I don't like the big plotters. I like athletes at the tackle position. I think projecting the NFL, you have to have that caliber of athleticism. Usually, when you are, though, as egregiously large as someone like Dawand Jones is, to just put numbers to it, 6'8", 7'5" wingspan, 11 3/4 inch hands. Those are all the biggest numbers in Senior Bowl history. Just to put that out. So he is egregiously large, and truthfully, the balance aspect of him at that size, usually you see guys on the ground a lot. With him, you don't. Like, he's not the most fleet of foot, but if his angles and footwork are precise enough, if he really hones that in, I still think he can be a plus pass protector at the NFL level, because you can't go through this guy.
Right.
Straight up cannot.
Yeah.
He is too big, too strong, too long, and good enough and flexible enough, unlike someone last year, and Daniel Faalele, who just couldn't sink into and he was just on his ass a lot. I think Dawand Jones can, and I think he can play tackle at the NFL level, and I think he's going to be a top 50 pick because of it.
All right, there we go. My second guy that I want to shout out, look, I'm putting my hand up on this one, okay? I did not watch Michael Wilson film before this week. I didn't. Michael Wilson, he's the wide receiver from Stanford. It took all of 2 reps that I saw from him to be like, all right, ball player. Yep, this kid's good. The release that he had against his teammate, Kai Blue Kelly, which, all right, so maybe he knows Kelly's weaknesses a little bit, so maybe he got him. But, he just absolutely cooked him on the line of scrimmage. And then there was another rep immediately after that where he was running a comeback. And he was able to sell it so well, hit the cornerback's blind spot, get him totally turned around, and then, boom, flip his hips the opposite way, totally open towards the sideline to get that pass. And there wasn't even a contested catch for it because he had already turned the corner around. It just felt like Wilson was such a great route runner in an event that has an opportunity to really shine a light on those players who are running savants. He was one of them. And I thought that outside of maybe if you want to call Tank Dell because of what he was able to do from an athletic standpoint with route running, this guy was an artist, I feel like, in how he set corners up. So I am very excited to watch him throughout the rest of the week. But Michael Wilson from Stanford, everybody, if you haven't watched him, go check him out.
100% one of the standouts here, and I truthfully wasn't on my radar either because he's played 14 games the last 3 years. He has not been able to stay healthy, see the football field, but he's 6'2", 209, unique in that we were talking about these guys who are 163 pounds, 175 pounds, not good size.
Right.
Michael Wilson's NFL-ready size and NFL caliber route running ability, that's going to stand out here. Those are the guys that win at the NFL level. Like that despite injury history, obviously is going to be huge, and that probably not going to go highly because of that. You got to be available still, but yeah, he already looks like a top 5 wide receiver.
So who's your last guy?
My last guy from the American squad is none other than Carl Brooks, the highest graded defensive lineman in college football this past season.
He was awesome.
Bowling Green, played defensive end, stand-up outside linebacker even at times. Weighs 300 pounds. He's 6'3", 300 pounds. He's going to play in the interior in the NFL. He's not an outside linebacker. And they had him play in the interior here, and he was still clowning interior offensive lineman. He just has such good hands, such active hands that are uncoachable to the degree that he has it. Powerfully built, lower half, upper half. Not the best length, only 32.25 inch arms, but there are a number of guys doing it at the NFL level with that short arms, whether it's Javon Hargrave, Ed Oliver, Kenny Clark, that I think he can be the next in that lineage of just unique power players on the interior. I think Carl Brooks, he was one of the biggest standouts today.
No, I agree with you completely. He was somebody who definitely made some money, as the saying goes, today on day one of the Senior Bowl. Last guy I'll shout out, North Dakota State offensive lineman. I'm going to say offensive lineman now, Cody Mock, because he played tackle for the Bison after converting from tight end, I should say. Ended up going to the program as a freshman as a tight end. Didn't he walk on? I think he walked on.
Walked on tight end.
Threw on 60, 70 pounds. They end up making this guy an offensive tackle, so he played offensive tackle for him. He was actually a really great pass blocker this past season, graded out very well in pass blocking. Here at the Senior Bowl, They got to play guard.
Oh,
Look,
yeah.
I understand, like, okay, maybe it doesn't have the length to play tackle nearly as much, but this guy was a former tight end. He's put on so much weight, and they threw him inside. Now, he's about 300, 305. I think they officially listed him at 305. I feel like he's closer to 300, but when you're talking about an interior player, 300 is light. And there were times when that initial strength, that initial contact with defensive tackles knocked him back. But, Mike, I was super impressed with how he was able to rework his hands, how he was able to anchor, just the technique that he had. This, to me, feels like an offensive lineman that you take somewhere on day 2, you give him some time, throw some extra weight on him, and all of a sudden, in maybe year 2, year 3, whatever it is, you got a damn good interior offensive lineman. Because this feels like a dude who just loves trench play. And I gravitate towards those players. And Cody Mock, so I wanted to shout him out. Unique player here at this event because he's playing guard at a lower weight. But I think in the NFL, going to get a little bigger, going to get a little stronger, and he's going to be a damn good interior offensive
Yeah, you just got to
lineman.
understand when you're drafting a guy like that. It's like year 2, year 3.
Right.
You know, like
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
the draft isn't always a year 1 proposition. Truthfully, it should never be a year 1 proposition with how many guys actually hit the ground running. So with them, you just got to understand that I'm not plugging him in the starting lineup right away, but I want to develop that guy.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about, now we might be repeating some names here, but we wanted to take what we are learning here in Mobile at the Senior Bowl and put it into practice, almost like a little mock draft for these guys. What teams could we envision some of these players playing for? I think that that's going to be something that you guys like as we do throughout the week. Let us know. And if there's some player team pairings that you guys love, whether it's just from the reports or the videos or whatever you're seeing from this week, let us know. We'll give you our 5 every day. You give us yours as you're seeing it from practice on social media or wherever you are watching. First one I want to start with, Mike, because we collaborated on these a little bit. I want to go back to DeJuan Jones. You talked about him being, what'd you say, a top 50 pick?
Top 50.
Top 50 pick. I'm saying Pittsburgh Steelers.
Which is perfect because they have the 50th overall pick.
There we go. There we go. And it's also
We didn't plan
perfect
that.
because one Mike Tomlin was front and center
Hawking him.
to watch DeJuan Jones. He was there watching every single one-on-one drill that this dude had. And so I just feel like Mike Tomlin gravitating towards him, knowing his team might need an offensive tackle, that could be a good Steelers fit.
To be fair, you didn't have to be on the field, though, to see DeJuan Jones. You could have been like,
Yeah, but he could have been further back.
circling
He
in
could have been
the
further back.
ISS.
He was front and center. And not only was he front and center, Mike,
Yeah.
he was talking to him. He was saying little things to DeJuan Jones. When he
That's how
had
you
a
know.
good rep, which obviously like he had a lot of good reps today, Mike was letting him know. He's like, "Hey, damn good rep. That's good stuff, kid." Like all that stuff. Like so, Mike Tomlin was very engaged in when DeJuan Jones was making things happen. But you like that fit?
Feels like a Steelers offensive lineman. The other one I would love to see, pick 44, New York Jets. Him and Mekhi Becton.
In theory.
In theory, scary. Scary in
Interesting.
theory.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. That'd be nice. All right, second one that I got on here. This is somebody that we did not mention that deserves to be mentioned. And I can't believe we got this far in the show without saying his name. Keanu Benton, the interior defensive lineman from Wisconsin, looked unblockable at times throughout this practice. I mean, I'm sure that there were a handful of reps during the scrimmage where he was handled a little bit, but like especially for the one-on-one drills, this dude looked like a monster. And I just went through his tape not too long ago, and he does. He's a nose tackle type that can give you a lot of strength in the run game that I think really worked on his pass rush this year. And I think you saw the light come on and he understands where to put the hands and how to disengage and how to have a pass rush plan. And holy cow, he showed it this past in this past practice. I got Benton going to the Los Angeles Chargers. How do we feel about it?
I like it a lot. And Benton's a guy who played nose tackle, but I think played nose tackle because of just what Wisconsin had. Like, I think he is a versatile defensive tackle that you want playing all over the place. He's not, like, he's playing a lot of two-point stance on his tape at Wisconsin. No, he can get upfield. As a guy who can penetrate into the backfield. So he makes a lot of sense for Los Angeles Chargers from that perspective because you're going to have to, Brandon Staley's your DC. You're going to have to defend the run with light boxes. Get a guy that can make plays. Keanu Benton's just that. Probably second, third rounder at this point.
Okay, what's the one that you had on this list? I did too, and then what's one that you got on this
One I love
is
we talked about Osiris Torrance.
Yes.
The one spot I would love to see him go is Detroit Lions.
Beef.
You want to keep that offensive line. You want to keep this offense
Dave
as elite as
Salfaro's
possible.
pumping his fist in the background, just so everybody knows.
I mean, we see what an offensive line has done for the Philadelphia Eagles, taking them to the Super Bowl. This offensive line, if you had Osiris Torrance to guys like Jonah Jackson, to guys like Penei Sewell, guys like Frank Ragnow, that is an elite offensive line. That is an offensive line that can move any defensive line off the ball. That's an offensive line I want to play quarterback behind. Pick 18, running in right now. Cyrus Torrance on the board. I love that fit.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that is truly making a strength even stronger for the Detroit Lions. Damn. I'll stick along the offensive line with my next one.
Okay.
Darnell Wright, and I told you he was getting slept on this class, to the Washington Commanders. Maybe even in the middle of the first round.
Ooh, pick 16.
Maybe even pick 16. Maybe you trade back if you think you can get him a little bit later. Maybe try to game the NFL draft a little bit. But no matter what, I think that the Commanders really need an offensive lineman. I like the idea of them upgrading the right side of that offensive line particularly. So, if you're talking about maybe quarterback need, obviously that's the biggest wild card for them, but having a corner need as well, having an offensive line need as well, I'm going to be the person who looks to offensive line first if I think I have a need there. And I just think that Darnell Wright plays that type of game that they would love. I mentioned how much I enjoyed the fact that he just takes the fight to these defensive linemen that are coming at him. I like that feeling of him being able to do that in Washington. So that's the fit that I like.
I still love Sam Cosmi there. I still think I wouldn't give up on him. Charles Leno, a little older. Maybe start Darnell Wright in the interior and let him develop to the outside. But I do think he's a guy that a lot of teams should covet purely because I think he's versatile enough to stick in your starting lineup whenever. So
last fit that we had here, the fifth fit, Rashee Rice, who had a little bit of a quiet day, but look, folks, that might be more because of the quarterbacks than because of Rashee Rice. I'm just saying. Rashee Rice from SMU, going to the New York Giants.
Pencil in any wide receiver, New York Giants.
But Rice's type of receiver going to the Giants, what do you think?
If I'm the Giants, I want one Rashee Rice type, one Tank Dell type in this draft. I mean, maybe two Tank Dell. Maybe just load up on dynamism. But I want one guy I can rely on. That is, they did not have that flat out on tape this past year for the New York Giants. Guys like Darius Slayton have like a lot of drops. He may not even be there next year. I want a guy who I know can get off press coverage.
Yep.
We saw that today.
Yep.
I know has good hands. I know can be physical. Bring down the tough balls. That is Rashee Rice. So maybe he's not a first rounder just because he's not maybe that caliber an athlete. But I think in the second round, pick 58, he's on the board, makes too much sense.
And I think the Giants, we often focus on the Giants taking wide receiver in the first round in mock drafts just because we want to acknowledge the fact that they really need it.
Oh, yeah.
But in reality, this class, I think the NFL really likes this wide receiver class as a much like a day 2, day 3 type of class.
Yes.
Where you're taking a lot of swings in that regard. So I really feel like the Giants could have their chance to take a guy like this later outside of the first round. So that's somebody that I wanted to note because he can play the X. Like this is a guy who can play on the line of scrimmage. You mentioned he's a sideline guy. You can get off press coverage. And he's a contested catch player, right? We talk about these slot receivers that could benefit the Giants. And sure, I think there's a lot of guys that could potentially fill in. You mentioned a Tank Dell type getting added to this roster, definitely. But, they signed Kenny Golladay to be that sideline stud for them, right? That's why they signed Kenny Golladay, and they did not get that back from him. They still need that wide receiver. So that's why I wanted to point out Rashee Rice, and I think that he could be a good fit there. So, all right, those are our 5 fits. Obviously, in the comments here live on the show, let us know what you think of some of the guys who are here at the Senior Bowl, some fits that you would love to see with players and teams. Mike, because it's just football, and because this is everybody's favorite segment on the show, let's do a dog of the day. We're going to do a dog of the day every single day from practices here in Mobile, Alabama. Mike, who is yours?
Mine is Tyreek Stevenson.
Okay.
Already talked about him. Miami corner. He didn't lose reps, man. I mean, and it was all over whatever you could have asked him to do. And now, we didn't see a ton of one-on-ones. That's why we get the whole week of practice. But I think he's the type of corner that is NFL translatable in his skill set. And he was in Daniel Jeremiah's initial round 1 mock.
He was.
And I don't think that's crazy after what we saw on tape here today.
It's a really good corner class.
Yeah.
And if there's something that I learned the most today from Mobile, it is that it's even deeper than I thought.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of guys here in Mobile who I was like, okay, like these are decent corners. Not any of the guys that I had in my like top 6 or 7 for corners, but there's some guys that might jump into that ranking, right? And like you said, they could litter the top 10 corner rankings that you might be pumped about, even going all the way to day 3. Not to say, hey, don't take a guy in the first round if you don't love him, but I just feel that it feels like that's becoming the strength of the class, is this cornerback group.
Yeah, I think of by the end of today, after what I saw from Stevenson, like the top 2 rounds, so top 64 on the PFF draft board.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see about 12 corners.
I mean,
like it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
It's
That's
a
just
big strength in this class.
how big and how strong that class is, no doubt about it. My dog of the day, I got to go with DeJuan Jones, simply because of the mentality that the young man played with. They opened up practice. Well, it wasn't the first drill that they did, but one of the first couple of drills they did was just a run fits kind of a drill, right? It was an offensive line versus defensive line. Defensive line, hey, don't gain ground, don't give them ground, whatever. Offensive lineman gets them pushed down the field. This is not a drill that Army edge rusher Andre Carter is going to thrive at. I fully understand that.
Yeah.
But DeJuan Jones pushed this young man about 10 yards off the ball. Like, it was just an absolute whooping. Yeah. And then, obviously, you get to the Isaiah Foskey rep as well, where he's throwing Foskey on the ground. He's giving him a little snatch. There was nobody.
You're giving him what?
And give him a little Travis snatch. Come on, don't do that to me. I just feel like there was nobody that was able to get beyond the size and length of DeJuan Jones and what he showed today. So he had to be a dog of the week, even just for the dominant mentality that he showed today.
No, like I said, if he continues this through the whole week, I thought first round talk was crazy for a guy like that. But I think in this class, if you are a scheme with a quarterback, with a mobile quarterback, you have where they can't rush certain ways. When you have mobile quarterbacks, you can't have guys just fly around the edge because open running lanes, whatever. You have to have guys who are kind of pocket pushers then. Trying to pocket push against DeJuan Jones is a fool's errand. So I think he is a fit for any team that, as I said, has a quarterback that you can't rush normally. I think he can hold up very well in pass pro.
I agree. I definitely agree. Any other player shout-outs before we get out of here? Anybody we maybe didn't mention? Anything like that?
Now I got to hold that off the top of my head.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. John Michael Schmitz. I do want to shout out John Michael Schmitz. Looked awesome. He actually had a couple of reps where I don't know if he was talking or maybe he was giving a little extra shove, but like not quite Trevor Penning vibes because Trevor Penning was taking it a little too far last year. But Michael Schmitz was kind of that offensive lineman that was just like, he ain't getting anywhere. I'm going to let you know about it. So I did want to shout him out a little bit.
Love that. Oh, I like Dian Henley too. We haven't talked about linebackers, running backs. Can't really see much here. But his build, for being 6 foot 230, he has long arms and he has not a lot of fat on him. That's a good thing. And he's like former wide receiver, Washington State, was former Nevada wide receiver, transferred to Washington State. Looked like that. You saw the smooth hips. You saw that coverage ability. I think he had a good day.
All right, there we go. Those are our thoughts from day one of the Senior Bowl here in Mobile, Alabama. We're going to be here after every single practice, so day 2, day 3, and then we're going to have a treat for you guys at the end of the week. I'm not going to give it away.
I don't even know what it is.
I'm going to make you guys – you actually do know what it is, but you don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But we're going to be here all weekend long giving you our thoughts and everything. We would love to hear from you as well, of course. Flood the comment section. Obviously, if you were in the live chat as well, we appreciate it. But let us know what you think of some of these players. The Senior Bowl is such a televised event now. We know that you guys are watching a lot of these prospects as well. Let us know who you thought is going to stand out or has already stood out already. Mike, I love day 2 the most because – one of the coaching staffs at the end of one of the practices was like, hey, we understand this is a job interview for a lot of you guys, but tomorrow, come back a little bit more loose. Come back a little bit more confident. Let's have a little fun. I think the highlights get kicked up to a whole nother level on day 2, and I'm very excited about it. Appreciate everybody watching here on day 1. Make sure you tune into the coverage throughout the rest of the week. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Mike Renner. Thank you guys so much for watching It's Just Football. See you guys tomorrow.
It's not about politics, it's about football.
This is a simple game.
We're going to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. He's just going to play football, really.
How good of a football player are you?
Not just get it and try to spin it. That's all.
I just love the game.
It really is the best time of the year.